another video on these cheese stuffed hamburgers type of things that I remember from school. So when I was at school, there was these. It wasn't a hamburger, it wasn't a beef burger because it didn't come in a bun. It was more of a flat meatball made out of pork that had cheese going through it. And for some reason they came into my mind and I wanted to have a go at recreating them. And I had a go. And to kind of some kind of success. Didn't taste exactly like I remember them from school, but they tasted something like. But I want to have another go. So I reckoned that when I ate these in the 1980s, it would have been the cheapest pork and bacon and sausage meat type of thing that the schools could get their hands on to feed us as cheaply as possible. I went to school before the whole kind of turkey twizzlers and all that kind of junk food. The food was proper food but cheap. So I reckoned that they used sausage meat, probably with some cheap bacon in it to kind of bulk it out, and then a cheap cheese that they'd get their hands on. So whatever was the kind of cheapest cheese, that's what they would have used in it. And I thought it was a red Leicester, because I remember I was chatting with one of my friends and she doesn't like red Leicester because it reminds her of cheap school meals. And I kind of thought that probably is red Leicester. But I bought some red Leicester and it just didn't taste kind of quite right. Now, so that was that video. This is this video. Going to do the same thing again. So we'll do equal quantities of sausage meat. I bought some sausages this time because it's cheaper to buy sausages than sausage meat. That doesn't make sense to me. I would have thought it had been more expensive to actually make sausage, more expensive to make sausages than just put some sausage meat in some kind of packet, you know, because you've got to fill the sausages and then. But anyway, so we'll use 50-50 mix of sausage meat and cooking bacon. So we'll mince that down and kind of mix those together. And now I have also got. So I worked on Friday and there was some trimmings from the pork loin. So I've got some trimmings of pork, so we'll mince that as well and see adding some of that to that, if that kind of makes a difference. And then I was in Lidl and I bought this air dried salami, German one, just because it was kind of cheap, or cheaper. It was a couple of quid off, and I kind of thought, oh, I'll just buy that. And tasting it, I kind of found myself kind of thinking that tasted not dissimilar to these burger patties that I'm trying to make. So we'll do a version with pork mincing, and we'll do a version with some of that minced into it as well, to kind of see if we can kind of get to the flavour that I'm kind of thinking of. Although memories of a funny thing, how you kind of remember things is kind of different. Although we did work out last time that they tasted more like what I remember as they were cooling down. And so that's that. Those are the porky bits of it. And then I've got these cheesy elements to it. So my mate, who's a cheesemonger, does a rather good red Leicester, cloth bound red Leicester. So I bought some more expensive red Leicester. So does it taste more like red Leicester than the stuff I bought from the supermarket? We will see. Little bit. Maybe not. So, and then I bought some mature cheddar. So how does this mature cheddar taste? Is this mature enough? Because it tasted quite mature, did the cheese. Maybe. Maybe. I've got some more cheddar. I've got a bit of leftover cheddar from. In fact, as if by magic, I saved bits of cheese on Friday night as well. So we've got some cheap, extra mature cheddar, and we've got the last bit of red Leicester. So, how does this supermarket owned mature cheddar taste, or extra mature cheddar taste? How does this red Leicester taste compared? My friend the cheesemonger said that maybe it was a double Gloucester, but double Gloucester is not as strong as a red Leicester, or as punchy as a red Leicester. That's got a stronger flavour. Much nicer that one. Much nicer that one. So, let's just go back to that one. I'm making a really interesting video. This is me just eating cheeses. Although, some people have made a lot of money through being gluttonous and eating lots of food on the internet. Well, let's just try a bit from the outside. Yeah, from the outside is kind of different. But anyway, so that's something for me to think about. I'm just gonna prepare this bit. I'm gonna prepare this and I'm gonna eat it when I come home from swimming later on. So we'll mince a few things, we'll mix a few things together, and then we'll kind of cook it when I'm home from swimming. But that's my plan, and that's what I intend to do. And we'll kind of see how it all works out. I wonder if we didn't. No, because we did one that was just minced bacon and it wasn't amazing. I think it certainly needs the sausage meat in it. I think so, yeah. I think so. Yeah, so we'll mince a few things, we'll mix a few things, and we're back when we're putting things together. So, this is the one with the fresh pork mince in it. So there is 200 grams of sausage meat and 200 grams of minced bacon and 100 grams worth of fresh pork mince. And then in this one, it's the same ratio of, so it's 200 grams worth of sausage meat, 200 grams worth of minced bacon, and then 100 grams worth of the minced up salami. And then I've cut some cheese up, so we'll just kind of keep that separate. Now, how do we make these patties? So we'll keep them separate. But I think I worked out last time that it was better to put the cheese on the inside. So we'll just do a few. I've got some more stuffing. I've got some more bits of, not the stuffing, but I've got the more of the meat, which I think what I'll probably do is the bits that are left over, I think I'll just mix it all together and make some pork meatballs that kind of way, I think. So some bits of cheese in the center. Yeah, so it's better to put the cheese in the center and then form the patty around it rather than mix the cheese into the patty, which is more of what I remember. But it kind of, I did them both ways last time, so I mixed the cheese into the mixture and then I stuffed some, and they both worked but in different ways. So obviously the cheese ones where it was interdispersed throughout, they were very nice, but the cheese wanted to leach out and kind of go crispy and make a bit of a mess, which was nice, but in a different way and not how I remember them. And this is more about making something I remember from school rather than making something new. But we can always see how things go. You know, I mean, I think just having a faff around in the kitchen leads to interesting places, and that's generally what I enjoy about cooking. It's the faffing around with things and flavours and recipes, and seeing what we can do and how we can change things. I mean, how we can cut the cost down of things. They're all about right. We can use that up somewhere else. I don't want to overface myself, and then we'll do the same with this. Yeah, I think so. One of the first chef I worked for, he was a old school chef, so I'd been properly trained and worked in proper hotels and done it all. And he knew that you could take expensive dishes and make them cheaper. So you could, I forgot what it was called, like a half lobster dish, where you pipe it onto mashed potato, and then grill it with like cheese sauce, lobster something or other, lobster thermidor. There we go. And he knew how to. He worked in a restaurant, a hotel where it was particularly expensive dish, but he knew that through the power of a little bit of knowledge, you could make the dish cheaper and therefore make it more accessible to other people. You know, they're not necessarily cutting corners, not cutting corners to make more money in the restaurant, but to actually cut corners, and you could sell it a little bit cheaper to people. It wouldn't be the same, but it was like a watered down version of it. So change it just enough to make it cheaper, but not kind of lose any too much kind of flavour, and get the idea. And I think so. He was a chef in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and it's kind of what happens with food. So if we think about something, you can have a really good prawn cocktail, or like a really good prawn salad, and it'd be the nicest, freshest prawns, really nice crisp salad, and then some marrow sauce which has got mayonnaise and tomato ketchup in it, and a bit of horseradish and some Worcester sauce, and maybe a bit of brandy. But you can also make a marrow sauce with just mayonnaise and tomato ketchup. And so food gets a bit of a bad reputation because it gets watered down. So a prawn cocktail is delicious, done properly, but done on the cheap, a bit rubbish. Same with things like Black Forest Gatto, and that's why those things got bad reputations, because they were constantly cutting the cost down of them to make them cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and you kind of lose that niceness of them. We'll just do one more. Yeah, we'll do it with this. Won't waste that cheese. We'll just do one more, so we'll know that those on that side are the salami one, and this on this side is the fresh pork mince. Well, it's not fresh, it was frozen. I stuck it in the freezer, then thought, I needed that. So it's actually defrosted. So that one, that one, all the same, and then that one is same as those. But I'm waffling, aren't I? So we'll put those in the fridge to set up, become a little bit firmer, and then we'll cook them under the grill when we get home. Although I've talked about this before, the grill in the kitchen is not a proper grill, it's a salamander. But anyway, that's another conversation. But we all know it as a grill, so we might as well just call it a grill. So we're back after I've been swimming, and these are set up in the fridge. Those are the ones with salami in, and those four there are the ones with the pork mince in. So they're set up nicely, actually. They're set up nicely in the fridge. So underneath the grill, full temperature, hot it will go for, well, until they're nice and brown on one side, and then I'll have to turn it around the other way, and then we'll flip them over, and then we'll give them a taste. Look. There we go. They're brown, don't they? Maybe a little bit too much, but let's just cut into them. I did have them on the grill, and I've just turned the grill off and had them in the hot oven, just to make sure that they cook all the way through. So which? Let's taste the ones with the pork mince in. They've got a bit bouncy. Ooh, look at that. That looks good, doesn't it? That looks good. It's going to be really hot. So that's the pork mincy one, and this is the salami one. I don't know what made me think the salami tasted like those school burger stroke patties. But, so I was saying that things lead into other places, and I've already had an idea of what I'm going to do with something. So all that stuff there that's left over, I'm going to roll it up into mini meatballs. I'm going to cook it in some tomatoes in the oven. But I was kind of thinking that meatballs, meatloaf, kind of the same type of thing, and it's a really good way of using things up. So you can have a set meatball stroke meatloaf recipe, certain amount of meat, certain amount of egg, certain amount of seasonings, certain amount of breadcrumbs, and then mix it all up, cook it, there you go, that's a meatloaf. But you can put other things in it as well. So I was kind of thinking, well, you could, and I don't kind of to use things up. So I find that I'll have things like a pork chop in the freezer and maybe 2 sausages, and I might have a bit of bacon left over, and I might have a bit of cooked ham. And I kind of think, well, what we could do is we could use the meatloaf recipe to use all those things up, to kind of mince it all down, mix it with some breadcrumbs, and then turn it into a dinner. So instead of having like if you were to have a dinner, you'd like 1 sausage and half a pork chop, you'd actually get a meatloaf. But anyway, that'll be another video. So I'm just going to cook those. Yeah, so that'll be a case of use it up meatballs, like whatever you've got in the fridge or in the freezer to use up, turn them into meatballs and cook them as is. So that will be that's a 2 for 1 on this video, isn't it? But what do these taste like? They'll cool down just slightly enough. You know, that's almost there. That's almost there. Now I think these salami ones are going to taste better. You know, that's almost there. That's almost there. I wonder what they put in them. If there was some kind of seasoning, like maybe a bit of garlic powder and a bit of salt and pepper, was kind of what turned them into. And then the kind of bacon and cheap mince and cheap pork mince or sausage meat kind of turned them into that. But that's pretty good, is that? That's pretty good. I don't think more salami would be a good idea, but that amount in it just makes it interesting and different enough. There's the fact that comes out of it. The cheese just isn't quite right though. The cheese just isn't quite right. So I might revisit those sometime in the future. But the salami is certainly interesting and certainly makes them more like I remember them tasting. But anyway, rather quite delicious. What does the pork one taste like? Maybe they didn't use sausage meat. Maybe they didn't use, but I think that it might not have been sausage meat. It might have been mechanically reclaimed meat. So once you've butchered a carcass, they used to put the bones through a scrubbing device, and it would scrub off all the bits of meat that the butchers didn't cut off the bones, like tiny scraps of meat, kind of scrape them off with these wire brushes, and then they would collect that meat and use it to bulk out things. So it was like a really cheap mince. Nothing wrong with it, you know. I mean, this idea that mechanically reclaimed meat was like the devil it's a little bit of misinformation. What they did with it afterwards wasn't particularly very good, adding chemicals and bulking agents and additives to it to turn it into things like turkey Twizzlers, turned it into something horrible. But essentially, once they'd scraped the meat off the bones, it was just meat, and it was a way of not wasting anything and being able to then use that to bulk out other things that go into mince and cheap pies and cheap sausages and all that kind of stuff, which is what we kind of did for years. So it might have actually been mechanically reclaimed meat, and that's instead of pork mince, it might have been that, and it wouldn't be quite a lot of sinew to it, but once you cooked it down, probably really kind of quite nice tasting. But anyway, that's me just thinking. So anyway, that was lovely. I think addition of adding some salami to a meatball mixture or something like a burger patty like this, I think it's actually a really kind of good idea. But then adding something like a cured bacon or a Parma ham or a Serrano ham or something like that would improve them no end as well. But anyway, they're very nice. I'm going to enjoy those for my tea. Probably a longer video than it should have been, but these things normally do spill over and take too long. But anyway, success and delicious.